Hello and welcome to Mind the Flat. I'm Amy Isles and I'm joined by...
Me, Tom Crowther.
And me, Chris Heffernan.
And today's episode is titled What a Time to Be Alive. And we'll be looking at whether it's best to live in the past, the present or the future. So we're going to start off today's episode by looking at if there was any event in the past, because the past is the best, hint to what I'm arguing for this week. If there's any event in the past that you could witness, any person you could meet, or any event you could go to, what would it be? So we're going to kick off with Tom.
I want to go to ancient Greece.
Ooh,
because they got some cool buildings and the people were thinking a lot about some cool things. Stop laughing. They were thinking about cool things. You've got your philosophers.
Fair few then.
You've got, mainly just the philosophers, if I'm honest. Yeah, have a guess at what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Plato, Aristotle, and there's another one, isn't there?
No, there were many more.
But they were like the main ones?
The main ones that we talk about, but there were all the Cynics and the Stoics. Many people that were all doing some pretty cool things.
Interesting.
Walking around wearing like togas and stuff, or was that Rome, or was that both?
Both.
Walking around wearing togas. Everything's nice and pretty. Greece is just a nice place in the summer. So yeah, specifically in the summer. I wouldn't want to go in the rainy times.
Not in the winter.
Ancient Greece, I think. I don't know.
Nice.
I don't really have much of a justification. I mean, I'm assuming I could speak ancient Greek. Is that?
Just
Yeah.
magically
I'm gifted.
transported.
I'm gifted that ability.
Well, yeah, you'd obviously be in the
I don't want to
TARDIS.
turn up and be like, "Hi guys," and they're all like, "What's going on here?" And then they kill me.
Salve Grumio.
Yes, plebs, the one about the Romans.
Oh yeah. Oh god.
Such a pleb, Amy.
Oh, that was savage.
Brilliant.
Go on then, Chris. Where would you go?
I keep changing my mind. So I think I'm going to go for, and I'd like to be able to fly at this time. So like with a plane or something,
Right.
even though it's in the past. I think I'd like to go to when the dinosaurs roamed the world.
Oh, I can see why you wanted to be in the sky for this.
So,
Yeah.
so also I was thinking, I don't know how where the tectonic plates would have been. So that's also something I'd be interested. Sort of, what would the world look like if it didn't look like the world look now?
Don't we know that though?
But you can't properly
predict it.
see it and sort of see how different it was,
Witness.
and sort of to be in that world where there are no humans, and there's these animals that you just can't comprehend their size. To sort of obviously to sort of be in like a force field bubble thing. I don't want to get eaten or anything, but to sort of stand next to a diplodocus. I mean, can you just it's just so
The atmosphere would be so
extraordinary.
different as well.
Yeah.
So you're just advocating for Jurassic Park, pretty much.
But the key
You just want to stand next to a dinosaur.
No, but the key
and
thing
not get
is
killed.
key thing is
I know they get killed in Jurassic Park.
Oh,
but
they do, don't
Sorry. Yeah,
Oh.
you wouldn't have the protective force field there, would you?
no.
Amy, what's yours?
So, mine, funnily enough, is not Shakespeare. But it is the Shakespearean era because I would love to meet Elizabeth I. And you know what? I'd really like to find out if she legitimately was a virgin queen. Because
I can imagine that would go really well for you. Just strolling up, you got absolutely no
Virgin.
connections. Hi, Liz. Yeah, have you had sex?
Now I'm
Because
not
apparently that matters.
I'm not the history expert, but what I do know of Elizabeth I, if you ask that, I think you'd be beheaded.
not that she was a lot more lenient than Henry VIII and Mary.
A lot less choppy.
Mary I. Which obviously she did execute people, most notably her cousin, Mary Queen of Scots.
Oh, spoiler alert, I was going to go see that film.
Soz mate.
Ruined now.
But yeah, and she did have a temper, but like if we're applying all the conditions you had, like just to kind of not to like stand in the room if/when it happened, but like she had this very, very intimate relationship with one of her courtiers, Robert Dudley, and that has been something that has fascinated me since I was about 10. Not the sexual side of it, but just this relationship between her and how she kind of just defied all conventions as this female monarch, and she just kept there was an enormous amount of pressure on her from her Privy Council to get married. She had loads of suitors. She was a very attractive woman in her youth, and she just kept batting it aside and kept going, I'll do it when I'm ready, or I'm going to make sure it's the right person. And yeah, I just find her an absolutely fascinating person.
Fair enough. Greeks, dinosaurs, and Elizabeth I. What a trip that would be.
That's so exciting. Can we do that, guys?
No.
Road trip.
Unfortunately, no. Well, the Jurassic Park, you never know.
One day.
Bringing back Elizabeth I. I mean, I could travel to Greece. Chris could go to Jurassic Park, but unfortunately, Amy,
I'm never gonna know, am I?
you're never gonna
Just
know.
watch Doctor Who. Apparently she slept with the Doctor. So there you go, she wasn't a virgin.
There we go. Now I know. Boom, boom, boom. Mind the flat. Boom, boom, boom. So on to the main discussion. Today I am arguing for the past, so I'm gonna kick us off. And I feel like I'm going to be totally transparent here. I feel like I have drawn the short straw on this one.
But there's so much of the past. The past
Yeah,
is so much longer,
it's
Amy.
very
It's the longest
broad.
straw.
At least yours exists.
This is true. We know it happened. Or do we? So I'm going
God,
to...
that's deep. Don't throw me into some kind
Another
of
episode.
existential shock, you know?
Did the past really happen?
Did anything really happen? Are we alive? Is anything real?
You can tell Tom needs more sleep, can't you?
Tom needs some more sleep, definitely. And to stop referring to himself in the third person as well, apparently.
Okay, so I'm going to go down the route of kind of, and I feel like I'm going to get torn apart for this, but generally, ignorance is bliss. So if you had lived in the past, you wouldn't know what was coming. Like we don't know at the minute what future technologies there's going to be, and I'm going to take a very technological route down this. But with that, you have lower benchmarks, so you find things more. Chris, don't give me that look.
This is brilliant, isn't it? Live in the past because expectation was lower.
But they are.
You did really well
Because you're
because
really-
your expectation
Oh
was
my
so
gosh, you've invented
low.
a wheel. That is incredible. But it would have been like that, wouldn't it? Like the invention of the wheel would have been like, oh my gosh, look at this advancement that we've made. It would have been the best thing since sliced
It
bread.
would have been like, oh look, I'm so malnourished that my fingernails have fallen off, but I don't know any better, and therefore it's the best.
Yeah, but you live within, and it's this thing of like living within your means. Like,
So people are dying of the plague and polio, but it's all right because they're living within their means.
This is brilliant.
how on earth am I meant to
Oh, the
argue
famines hit and my children are going to die, but it's all right because we're all living within our means.
But they wouldn't have known any better.
They would have, because they'd have looked up at the castle and the Queen would have been like, ooh, I love my turkey today. And then they're starving on the
Like,
streets.
you look up at people and they're doing a lot better
So
than you
so
are.
what is the
Yeah,
difference?
but we're not
okay?
dying.
We haven't invented between the past and the present a way of seeing into the future. So I'm just struggling. The fact we could live in the past because we didn't know what was coming. Equally, we could live in the present because we don't know what's coming.
This is very true, but
No
also,
buts.
also, in the past, you you might have a lot more death, but you don't have like other pressures which are equally as bad.
Sorry, yeah, okay.
So in our two podcasts ago, we discovered that a third of the population died during the Black Death, which happened, in the past. But don't worry, people, the third of the population that died in the Black Death, you didn't have the stress of getting a pancake, a boomerang on Pancake Day. So it's okay, don't stress.
Oh yeah, for context here, Amy got very upset
for
when
goodness sake.
we didn't do a boomerang of her flipping a pancake, and then when we did, it didn't go very well.
So there we go, they wouldn't have that
Right.
stress,
But also,
so it'd be better.
I think you'd appreciate life more because
Wow.
every argument is.
But couldn't
Well,
you
let's
say...
go to sub-Saharan Africa and tell them that, you know what, your life is better because you appreciate it more. You know what, Ignore all the billionaires. They don't know what they've got. You've got you understand what life is.
Oh dear.
It doesn't never matter that you have to walk 2 miles to get water.
Do we go for attempt 10 on starting the argument?
I was never going to win this. What else have I written down here? We do take a lot for granted there in the present. Like,
But couldn't they take things for granted? Like for them,
Yeah.
the invention of the wheel, say, they were, oh, this
as
is
you
great.
move
We can
through
go.
time, I think you take things for granted more. That is my argument.
Oh, okay. That
Oh, we've got something.
that's good.
We're making progress.
Let's keep going. Okay. Everyone should just let Amy go.
Oh, no, God, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
Well, we came to some start of an argument, and that's it. As we move through time, we take more for granted
You do.
because we're dying less.
Can we just move it away from death? Because I'm
Okay.
always going to fail on that front.
Okay.
Because
What about
medicine,
malnutrition?
oh, for goodness sake, it's still related to
I
death.
feel like to give you some kind of concession, there was a lot of things in the past that would have been quite cool to go and do and see that we don't have
Yeah.
anymore.
Exactly.
Like watching the gladiators in ancient Rome. It's not great for the gladiators.
Mercilessly kill
This is-
themselves.
it's not great for the
Moving
things
away
that
from
die.
death.
Again,
now,
yeah.
so-
Yeah, maybe actually that wasn't the best one.
To go to Shakespeare's Globe.
Oh yeah, there
and
we are. That's
see
a good one.
a
That's a nice
Shakespeare play.
non-deathy one.
Yeah, and to have that knowledge of like knowing that something has like we were talking about at the start, that things that are mysteries now wouldn't have been mysteries then.
But they'd
And-
had other mysteries.
Yes.
Also, talking about like going to see a Shakespeare play, that might not have actually been particularly good if you were
Oh,
actually
don't
then.
you go there, Christopher Heffernan.
Oh, here we go. I'm gonna leave.
Because we go to the theatre, like we went to see an Emma Rice production,
We
and that was
did.
amazing, didn't it? We
Yeah.
absolutely loved it. Whereas if you went to a Shakespeare play, we're thinking, oh, a Shakespeare play. Whereas they're probably thinking, Shakespeare play. Like we think, an Emma Rice play.
Yeah,
To be
but
good-
I think an Emma Rice play.
Fair enough.
Probably not as much as Shakespeare, but this is true.
Probably would have been a bit naff, wouldn't it? Because you've had to have stood.
Plus, that's the thing, the cast is very exciting.
because it brings in a totally different dimension of performance. Like the Pit was not boring at all. If you look into theatre history, the Pit was
Yeah,
actually.
Tom, please.
Here we go, Shakespeare knowledge.
Could you do your
for the
history before you
episode.
make a point, please, Tom?
Oh dear, I feel I've
You
messed
had
up here a
all
bit.
sorts going on in the
I
Pit.
shouldn't have mentioned
but I will
Shakespeare, I'm really
rein it
sorry.
in. I'll rein it in.
Right,
Yeah.
so we've got things that were good in the past, took less for granted and valued life more, and we could go see Shakespeare.
Less mysteries.
Fewer mysteries.
Fewer mysteries.
Mysteries are quite fun, though, aren't they?
I feel like there's more mysteries
Yeah, good point.
because this has
How
been
did that
solved.
person die? Actually,
But they had their own theories. This is what I meant by living within your means. Like, they
Yeah.
might not have been correct, but they were trying to make advancements.
I mean, we're certainly not correct about most of the things that we think. Probably, like
we're
that's the
still
whole
trying to
point.
make advancements.
That's the whole point of science. Is that it's like everything that science says is true, isn't true in the sense that it's absolutely 100% certain a lot of the time. It's that until we find something that better explains this thing, this is the best that we have.
This is true, but I think science being a lot more primitive in the past, and I feel like this is going to get torn apart as well, but belief, I think, in the past is a lot stronger, which is, I think, why kind of secularism has grown, because they didn't have the means to research into those methods at certain points in history. And also, I think that kind of increases intuitiveness and intrigue, because it keeps pushing you towards these developments. And as we kind of get more and more technology, not that we're getting less intrigued.
I feel like
But-
yes, if you're a rich person, but if you are the majority of the population in the past, you're probably not thinking about the way that the Earth spins is really intriguing. You're thinking, I really need to put some food on the table so that my kids don't starve. And
Yeah,
I
but
think
I
a
think
lot
you've got
of
to look at all of society. I think that, yeah.
yeah,
you've
but
got
that's
to
the
look at
thing. A
all of
lot more of
society.
society was faced with those kind of things, and I'd say probably a majority of society was faced with those kinds of things. I mean, obviously, if we're looking at the past, I'm not including like 10 years ago,
Yeah.
but looking at like a few hundred years ago, looking at the whole of society would mean looking at those people that are struggling to survive, because those that weren't were a very, very small minority, because we didn't have the resources and the technologies to distribute everything evenly across society, or more evenly across society.
But then I kind of go back to my point of ignorance is bliss. Like,
Sorry.
stop. Like you don't have the choice to be able to do things a better way, because you have to live that certain way, and that I don't think that necessitates that life was worse then. It was just different.
I guess there is actually if you look at history, there's a lot of strength in saying that, for instance, hunter-gatherer societies were a lot happier than any other society. Like the agricultural revolution actually was potentially a negative thing for history, because it introduced all these pressures to people, and they can't reverse those pressures because everyone else is doing these things, and they're now reliant on these systems. Whereas when people were hunter-gatherers, they'd work for 4 hours a day maybe, they'd go out, they'd pick some berries and make some plants and get some plants and stuff. They'd go home, they'd cook it, they'd cook their bison,
Yeah.
and then they'd sleep all day and paint and run around and do whatever. I think that existence is actually a lot less stressful.
Yeah, a simpler life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another point I've got down actually, kind of related to that, and coming on from it, is that one thing I think is a problem with the present, and will be an even bigger problem in the solution, is that we are running out of natural resources, and eventually we're going to get to a point where we can't continue living as we do, because we won't have those resources to be able to do so. And in the past you did have those resources, or you relied on other means of living.
Yeah.
Well, moving on our temporal scope then, let's have a look at what Chris has to say with the present.
The present. Well,
First of all, I just want to say the present doesn't actually exist.
here we go.
It doesn't, does it? Because if you think about it, right?
Yeah, go on.
Well, because
It's so ephemeral.
any time frame you pick it, the present is this hour, but within this hour there are minutes, and within the minutes there are seconds, and you just keep you can
Chris's
keep
face.
going further and further down to infinity, and then there's actually nothing that is the present. It's all, everything is the past or the future. So Chris is unfortunately arguing for something that doesn't exist. Carry on.
Maybe I didn't draw the short straw.
So, as with any good essay, for the purpose of my argument, I am defining the present.
As something that
This
doesn't
is the
exist.
way Chris always starts his essays. He always, and I'm not condoning it. I mean, it's a great way
You're
to
not
start
condoning
essays.
it, okay?
I'm not. There you go. You're still allowed to do it. That was the wrong word choice. It's not going well today, is it?
Not condemning it.
It's a good way to start your essays. Carry on.
The present, as we're going to sort of say, this point will go back up to sort of 25, 30 years.
Is that convenient for the argument you're trying to make?
No, but I'm just sort of giving a picture of sort of the idea
Okay,
of the
yeah.
present. Life sort of as we know it now.
Post-war.
Okay.
Post-war.
Sort of this
Yeah.
time. So, I just think it's a great time to live.
Well, there we are. Case closed, everyone go home.
So,
It's just a great time to live. Thanks, Chris. No,
The
What
light-
about all the death?
so actually, okay, death. Let's just get death out of the way first. So, life expectancy is up more in the past 50 years than the previous 1,000 years. Okay?
But is that a good thing?
I would probably say, yeah.
I'm going to go with...
I mean, I think in
Yeah.
1950, the average life expectancy was like 46, and now it's 71.
Oh, in 1950?
Yeah, not in the UK.
Oh.
World life.
Okay.
There are people that aren't in the UK.
Oh, I thought
I'd
you
hit
meant
him.
that you...
I'd hit him, Amy.
Sorry, that was quite hard. I'm so sorry.
I didn't actually mean hit him. And B, I didn't even mean punch him so hard it made a noise.
Just doing a bit of failure work.
Can I just say, I'm really sorry, Tom, for the spikes on my sound recording, but
Oh, for goodness
I mean-
sake.
I was alarmed.
Are you okay?
I'm shocked more than anything.
I'm sorry. It didn't hurt.
Really?
My punches never hurt. I'm just a weakling.
While we're on violence, there's been less violent deaths throughout most of human history.
Not for long.
Around 15% of the population died in violent deaths, whereas now that's around 6 to 8 per 100,000 people, per 100,000 deaths. So there's much less violent deaths. You've got children 2016. If you're born in 2016, you stand a fairly good chance of seeing the arrival of the 22nd century. So I think what is great about the present is we're in a time when there's quite a lot of peace. You've got the good education. You've got a pretty good level of health. You're not worrying that you're going to die from a violent death every 2 days. So you have that potential to look to the future, to start making the foundations for an even better future. So
I feel like you're almost laying the foundations for saying that the future is better than the present.
the future could be better than the present. I mean, you could, if I stood here and went, no, it's never going to be better, I think there's a hell of a lot of things that could go wrong in the future. But we'll save them when you do your bit. But I think in the present, that's really my point. I feel it's hard to say much more because we're living in it, aren't we? Now, what do you guys think?
I feel like a lot... Yes, there's been a lot of improvement in terms of where we've come from. And I certainly don't think I could ever argue that the past was worse than the present. Sorry, no. I certainly couldn't argue that the past is better than the present for many, many people. But I do think that we will continue on the kind of trajectory that we're going down now, and the things will only get better.
So go on then, you go for the future then.
Go for the future?
Yeah. And we'll see what we can say about it.
Well, I mean, we've got self-driving cars. That's pretty cool.
Haven't we got them at the minute?
Yeah, but they're not like widespread. We'll have widespread self-driving cars. Imagine
but
that.
Will we?
Just sit down.
I feel like my response to you is just going to be, but will we? But will we? But will we?
Tom, I don't want to be a pessimist about this, but we have a planet to have driverless cars on.
Yeah, this is true. Climate change is coming for us.
Yeah. Maybe. And this is tough because we've all got kind of rubbish ones, haven't we? In our own little way, all of our arguments are a bit rubbish. Like, in Amy's one, lots of people died. In Chris's one, lots of people are still dying.
And in your one, lots more people are going to die.
And in my one, other people are going to die for different reasons. So
do you think mine's the best then? Because we've probably got the least amount. As far as the death scale goes, it's all the way up here, dips, and then we're going all the way back up
no, because I feel like there is a genuine... Like, I actually feel a little bit positive about the response to climate change. I think there will...
Good.
Oh, okay.
That's nice.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. You sound not too... You don't sound particularly enthusiastic about it, but...
I'm saying good. That's good. That's a positive note. I'm just thinking, for any listener, they might have just woken up Monday morning, stuck the podcast on, and I'd say that 75% of this podcast has been about death. So the idea of some sense of hope on a Monday morning is brilliant. So thank you, Tom.
Okay, so... I think that there is a lot that can be done, and especially with technology growing at the rate it has done. I mean, we talked about quite a few podcasts ago now when we were doing our End of the World. Technology is growing exponentially fast, and therefore our ability to adapt to climate change and mitigate the impact of climate change will continue to grow. And so long as people kind of continue the urgency that they've got now, I think there's certainly things that can be done. And also that the impacts are going to be felt across a long period of time. I'm not saying that we're not going to feel the impacts of climate change, because we will. And I'm not saying that we're not going to feel the impacts of other potential disasters that continue in the future. But I really feel that we can do things about it. And the fact that we can do things about it means that there is a future there where things will be better.
But
Go on, Amy.
What about the finite amount of resources that we have? Because eventually we are going to run out of fossil fuels, things that we rely really heavily on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and as part of that, we need to adapt. We need to invest in these particular resources that are renewable. And I think if we do that, then we won't need to worry to the extent that it will be worse than the present. There will be so many things that will make it better than the present. Will that safety will continue to like increase, health will increase, and people will, through automation, will be able to free their time up to do more. Like, I mean, look at what the sort of jobs that people are doing now compared to what people did in the past. In the past, most of society was working on farms and making enough food to live off. There was a lot of subsistence farming and that sort of thing. Whereas now, the rates have completely dropped and people can do jobs they want to do. Like, Chris, you want to be a TV presenter. Amy, you want to... I don't know.
I don't know what I want to do either. I was excited to see where you were going to go with that.
But you know that you're not going to be sat down trying to till a farm so that you don't die in the next harvest. You know?
the present's great then?
No, but I'm saying, look at what's happened up until the present.
Yeah.
These things will continue getting better for other people in the world. Not everyone has the luxuries that we have today. And other people in the world will have the opportunity to have these things so long as we do adequately address the effects of climate change, because the people that don't have now are going to be the people that are going to be most affected by these issues.
So to try and trump Tomp by using...
Trump.
to try and trump Tom by using Tom now, you have convincingly told us both, and I think you've had us both quaking in our boots for weeks now, the dangers of artificial intelligence and how all these technical advancements that are going to solve climate change and that are going to mean that climate change isn't a problem are going to lead to devastation of artificial intelligence and the draining of all the oceans. Why isn't artificial intelligence not going to be a problem in your future?
Oh, it's certainly going to be a problem. We've got lots of problems now, but we can deal with them. And
you
I
can
think
deal with artificial intelligence?
I think so, yeah. I genuinely think so. I think just because it's the biggest threat, or is one of the biggest threats, doesn't mean that it's going to completely destroy everything.
How, Tom? Because you were very clear last time we couldn't turn it off, and we wouldn't know once it had hit. I'm going to stop laughing, because my argument doesn't... You seemed very clear you couldn't unplug it last time, and that we wouldn't know when the threat had hit, and until it was too late. So what is wrong, Amy? I'm making a good argument!
Okay, it's like it's just plugged into a mains power socket.
But that's what we argued, and Tom said we couldn't do that. And so I'm saying, so how do we stop it?
As I said in that podcast, if we do find a way to sandbox it or to prevent that kind of large-scale escape, then we will end up being able to control it. And I think there is a lot of prominent technology figures would agree that there is a way to control artificial intelligence or to manage it, and therefore there is hope. And I think the positive things that can do are incredible. And so just because something is the greatest risk or is a significant risk doesn't mean that it will completely ruin everything.
I wish you'd told me that when we did the podcast all those months ago. I've been panicking, you know? Every time I turn the computer on, I'm thinking, is it going to eat me at any moment?
It's not magic. It does have physical limitations. It does have to abide by the rules of physics.
So I think we've come to the point that whatever period of time you live in, there's always going to be issues, there's always going to be risks, there's always going to be problems. But on balance...
No, Amy. No. Stop. There is no way you are concluding this on a thing of on balance. They've all got their pros and cons. You just no. You just can't. You just cannot conclude that the past, the present, and the future all have their strengths and weaknesses. I'm sorry, we just can't.
But no, I found because when you think of the past, you like it's always like the good old days. And
no, it's not.
Homophobia. Women had no power.
Oh yeah, we didn't even touch on this.
I was hoping to avoid that point because I have no
racism, the slave trade.
Yeah.
But they were the good old days.
Colonialism.
They were the good old days.
But there are good parts of the past.
Yeah.
Like technological advancements that happened in the past. There are good points.
But we've still got them
It's
now.
Yeah, they've not gone away. If anything, they've got substantially better.
Yeah, but
and will
without them,
continue to do so.
we wouldn't be where we are now.
I'm not saying I said we can't not have the past. I say if I had to choose which one I'd like to live in, the past, the present, or the future. I mean, I'm bordering between the past, the present, and the future, depending on how much of a risk I want to take. As whether I say, take me to the future and I risk an antibiotic apocalypse, or whether I go, actually, at the moment, things are all right, I'm going to stay safe. I'm not going, you know what, good old days of the past, I'll give it a go.
Well, you know what, I'll just go and hang out with Shakespeare and his buddies and talk to Elizabeth I and see if she was a virgin or not.
What are you thinking, Tom?
I'm thinking that your statement about the risk of the future is actually quite an important one, because I think the uncertainty is a big problem with the future, and I think we can pretty much discount the past because it was rubbish. But looking at the present,
Not you, Amy. Just have to say, not Amy.
Thanks, guys.
Not what you said.
Yeah, Amy, you are not the past. Although what you said a lot of the time was ridiculous.
But how on earth do you go about arguing the
Exactly.
past?
It was tough, and it was entertaining, and hopefully that'll have come across.
But yeah, I think that like the present is certainly, as far as we can tell, the best that we've got. The present now, everyone is in a better position, or most people are in a better position. If we continue in the way that we're going, we can have a good future.
Yep.
But I think maybe Chris does have the stronger one here in that he's got the certainty, and that certainty factor is something that. And if you're a person, if you're a human being as well, we really value the present.
Yeah.
We really like. There's.
Life is for the living.
But like, if you have a chocolate bar in front of you, and you either choose to have that, you can choose to have that chocolate bar today or in a week. On balance, most people are going to choose today, and so we value the future. There's no difference in your enjoyment of the chocolate bar today or in the future, but we would rather have it now. Because on balance, we feel that our consumption now, our enjoyment now, is more important than the future. And so I think that's another thing that kind of gives a strength to the bow of the future, is that people are naturally going to say with their kind of short-sightedness that's what I mean. If I've been saying the future...
No, you just said it that one time. Strength of the bow to the present.
To the present, yeah. So people are going to prefer the present because they have this bias towards existing now.
I think that is the thing.
Yeah. I think
It depends how much of a risk you want to take, doesn't it?
Yeah, and most people don't like risk.
Yeah.
Most people are risk averse.
I quite like living in the moment as well.
Oh.
Just that kind of person. I just like living in the moment. But no, like I think enjoy each moment for what it is.
Yeah, and make sure you get a boomerang of it.
Shut up.
Boom, boom, boom. Thank you very much for listening.
And if you want to get in contact, you can find us on Facebook. We're Mind the Flat Podcast.
On Twitter, we're at mindtheflat_pod.
And Instagram at mindtheflat_podcast.
And if you want to respond to anything we've said in this episode, or suggest a topic for another week, you can head to our Reddit. That's r/mindtheflat.
Or alternatively, you can drop us an email at mindtheflatpodcast@gmail.com.